We're about to unpack a legal battle that's been going on for over a decade. And let me tell you, it's a wild story. It starts in a family court, but it quickly spirals into this massive fight over a huge sum of money, a fight that really makes you question the whole machinery of our justice system.
And this is the number right at the heart of it all, $173,000. I mean, just think about that. That's how much money was seized from one man's paychecks over 10 years, all because of a court order he says was bogus from the very start.
And this is the man himself, Jerry Hirschfeld. You know, his question just cuts right through all the noise, doesn't it? This isn't just about his money anymore. It's about a really fundamental idea. What happens when the very system that's supposed to protect your rights seems to be the one taking them away?
So, you gotta be asking, how in the world does something like this even happen? Well, we're gonna dig in and try to figure that out. We're taking a deep dive into what can be a really complex, confusing legal bureaucracy.
This is the big puzzle we need to solve. I mean, how does one single court order kick off a decade of automatic, relentless enforcement that ends up taking a small fortune from somebody? Where do things go so wrong?
Believe it or not, this entire 10-year saga apparently all hinges on one single piece of paper. Just one document filed with the court that Hirschfeld is flat out calling a lie right from the moment it was submitted.
And that brings us to the foundation of his entire case, this idea that the whole thing was built on a fraud. Not just any fraud, but a fraud against the court itself.
So here's the specific claim. Hirschfeld says that the child support worksheet, the form they used to calculate how much he should pay, listed income numbers that he never, ever earned. He's saying they were just invented, totally inflated.
Now, this gets to a really important legal rule. In Colorado, they have what's called mandatory disclosure. It's a fancy term, but it just means both people in the case have a legal duty to be 100% honest about their finances. It's supposed to be the bedrock of a fair decision. And this is why it's such a huge deal. Lying on these forms isn't just a simple mistake. It can be considered one of the most serious things you can do in a civil case. It's called fraud on the court. And if that's proven, it can mean the entire judgment was invalid from day one.
Okay, so if it all started with just one alleged error, how did it spin so completely out of control? This is where we get into how a single piece of data, once it's fed into an automated system, can kind of take on a life of its own.
Hirschfeld's theory here is both simple and honestly a little bit chilling. He says the second those allegedly fake numbers got typed into the court's computers, they weren't just numbers anymore. To the bureaucracy, they became fact, an undisputed truth that automatically triggered wage garnishments for years and years.
And, in a perfect world, the process is pretty straightforward. You file your documents, a human clerk is supposed to look them over, a judge makes a decision, and a valid order goes into the record. It's a system of checks and balances.
But the reality, well, it's a lot messier. Take a look at the actual court e-filing interface. It's this dizzying mess of menus and numbers and codes, and this isn't just about bad design. It's a system where one wrong data point can slip through, get cemented into the record, and become this digital ghost in the machine that's almost impossible to get rid of. So all of this puts the court in a really tough position. It creates this clash between two fundamental principles of our legal system: the need for cases to actually end and the need for justice to be served.
And here you can see the court's perspective, voiced by the chief judge. The argument is basically, look, at some point a case has to be over. We can't just keep reopening things forever. It's a principle called finality, and it's pretty crucial for the courts to be able to function at all.
So let's just break this down. You've got finality on one side, which is all about stability. But on the other, you have this idea of a void judgment. And that's a ruling that was so fundamentally broken from the very beginning that legally it's like it never even happened. And this is Hirschfeld's really powerful counterargument. He's saying, hang on a second. You can't apply the idea of finality to something that was void from the get-go. In that situation, he argues, finality doesn't protect justice, it just locks in an injustice forever.
Now, beyond all the legal arguments and the technical stuff, there's a real human cost here. Because after a decade, this is not an abstract debate. It's about the very real, very damaging impact this whole fight has had on a person's life.
This quote, wow, it's incredibly powerful. Think about it. After 10 years of being told by a faceless system that you're wrong, that the evidence you have doesn't matter, the psychological damage must be immense. He's making a very clear distinction here. He's not sick, he's been injured by the process.
In this whole situation, it just naturally leads you to a crucial question about perception and reality. What happens to someone's mind when they're trapped in a fight like this for so long, when the official story just relentlessly contradicts what they know to be true?
It really boils down to this, and it kind of reminds you of that movie Christmas Vacation. The court, and really all of us watching, have to ask, is Jerry Hirschfeld like Clark Griswold, a totally sane guy who's being driven to question his own sanity because nothing the system does makes any sense? Or is he Rusty, someone who's just lost touch with reality? He is adamant it's the first one, and he's got the system backed into a corner where they have to answer.
So, when all is said and done, where does this leave us? Well, this case kind of forces us to pull the camera back and ask a much, much bigger question about what justice even is.
You see, the outcome here matters to all of us. It's really asking whether due process is a right we can actually use, a real tool we have, or if it's just a nice idea in a textbook that gets lost in the bureaucratic shuffle and ignored by automated systems.
And that's the question that just hangs in the air. When the huge, complex machinery of the state gets something wrong, is it the machine's job to fix it, or is the entire burden on the one person who got caught in its gears to prove the mistake? The answer to that question really defines what kind of justice system we actually have.